Chapter 61 The Disguise Gate, 5, You are listening at novelfull.audio. Oh, is this the gate? Lee Se-chul stepped out of his car and removed his fancy shades as he pocketed and walked closer to the enormous purple dot-colored gate, rampaging its surrounding with wind torrents that formed around it, preventing others from entering. Hunter Lee Se-chul. Agent Zhang Dsu bowed as the S-rank hunter walked closer to the gate and looked at it with his hand pocketed. Yes. Agent Zhang Dsu responded, looking at the massive gate along with Lee Se-chul. Wait, is someone inside? Yes. A merchant, I guess. He smirked. The association has always kept the identity of merchants a secret. I can't believe I'm going to find one out today. Agent Zhang Dsu rolled his eyes up and away from Lee Se-chul like the "give me a break" kind of expression. The guilds have always been at the neck of the association ever since the beginning of the appearance of gates and the awakening of humans to hunters. It is like that around the world because the association exists to limit the power of the guild. By owning the exclusive right to every dungeon that spawns in an area. Of course, the association alone cannot deal with all the dungeons, so they sell the gates to guilds at auction price, or the guilds can purchase gate rights to certain areas according to the forecast of gate emergence of existing areas that have surplus gates around them. Everything the guild does revolves around the association. However, what if the guilds have too powerful hunters? Among hunters, there are those that violate the common sense. Yes, common sense has been violated the moment monsters started appearing and humans started having powers, but these are at a different level. With tremendous power that can destroy an entire area in minutes, and abilities to turn an entire space to their favor, some even have authority over concepts, space, or gravity. It goes with diverse saying. This level of hunters is sought throughout the world, and because of this they are a diamond that anyone would pay billions of dollars to obtain. When these kinds of people begin to go into guilds, the power balance begins to shift. It becomes impossible for the association to pressure guilds with these level of hunters. And because of these kinds of people, the Hunters Association begins to tiptoe around the guilds. And South Korea Hunters Association was in that kind of condition. S ranks were already a lot of massive power shift. However, the only two of these special ranks that exist in South Korea belong to guilds, and one is a guild master himself. Due to this, the Korean Association began the merchant concept, where hunters can work for them under hidden identities and reap rewards. On the outlook, it was just a scheme to instill fear in the guilds, to make them think the association has hunters that are capable of clearing high-rank gates, and it was working well. What do we plan to do? The gate won't let anyone in. What else do we do? We have to wait. If the hunter inside has died, the gate will calm down somehow. At least I will be able to enter then and retrieve the dead body for you. Lee Se-chul replied with a naughty grin. It was an obvious taunt, and Zhang Dsu was already used to how pathetic and immature Lee Se-chul can be sometimes, so he just looked elsewhere. However, it was the truth. There was nothing they could do but wait for the moment. Anyone that neared the gate, the winds around it gets wilder and throw them away. Do you plan to go in alone? My attack squad is on their way. Zhang Dsu's eyes widened for a moment. The Gojo Guild main attack squad. He gulped. His demeanor at the moment depicted the enormous respect he had for them, even though he reasoned Lee Se-chul to be immature. A dark castle looms ominously beneath the dark skies of the Disguise Gate, its imposing walls rising from the rocky terrain that surrounds it. The sky overhead is shrouded in thick, ominous clouds, casting the entire scene in a gloomy, foreboding light. There are no flags flying from the castle's turrets, no sign of life within its walls. How moronic! You unintelligent species were pursued by a human, and you dare think I will grant you shelter? In a dark and vast room, a few number of orcs clumsily stood in the center, and at the far end of the room was a throne seat with its back towering over everything else. There were no decorations on the walls, no tapestries or banners to adorn the space. The only light that came was from a single beam of moonlight that crept in through a narrow slit in the ceiling, casting a dim glow on the throne and the white-skinned man with a long horn at the center of his forehead. The man rested his chin on his hand and was dressed in a black medieval suit, jacket, pants, boots, and shoulder cape, with his wet gray hair cut across his neck and shoulders. Cured, human strong, the man's eyes narrowed at them with a frown. Few minutes later, a thunderous sound could be heard with evident light that blinked in the sky afar. That is the orc chief's skill. Thunder smash. That stubborn bastard didn't use that skill until he saw that his life is ending by my hands. The orcs shook as they heard the sound and muttered amidst each other, causing a slight noise in the silent castle. Shut up. First of all, the 3 orcs that were supposed to be my tribute, escaped from here a few hours ago. Did you see them? The orcs were silent with fear and whispering, they inquired of one another. With the only condition that you all will send me 1 orc every 6 months was the only reason why I spared your Koayak tribe. Those damn tributes for 18 months all dare to run away from me. He groaned his frustration, slamming his fist on the iron arm of his throne seat. Quer Guvug Wisk, human kill tribute, the spokesman of the orc replied, not sure if that was the case but they decided to pin it all on the human they were running away from. What? A human dares to touch my tribute. The man gritted his shark teeth with his single horn faintly glowing in the moonlight. That darn human. The man suddenly paused and stood up, walking forward slowly, and finally came to a stop. Looks like your orc chief is dead. He said with a grin, but that grin faded to a frown. If he is a human that is capable of killing the orc chief, then he cannot be underestimated. However, I am different, I am an ogre who has received a name from the great demon lord of chaos. I have a true name, I can defeat a measly human. He said and looked at the orcs who were mourning but dared not to stand carelessly in front of the named ogre. But first, I will need to strengthen myself with these ones. Chapter 62 Trial of Essence, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Demons and celestials are powerful existences that are granted an ability that supersedes that of any other lifeforms. It was an ability that could only be obtained when one has reached an enormous level of comprehension and power, and most importantly when they have carved their true name out of their souls. Having carved out their true name, they can name other creatures. If it is an unintelligible creature, the creature robs off a little power from whatever named it and evolves to a different level not seen or heard, also possessing tremendous power, which makes them a very unpredictable and destructive phenomenon, a phenomenon that the world was yet to know about. Hyung, are you going to go all the way? Min-ho relentlessly begged Wraith to let them go back, but Wraith paid him no attention. After walking for a few minutes, Wraith could finally see the dark castle that sat, immersed in the rocky terrain. Ha! I finally found it. He grinned. Min-ho shrunk in fear as he saw the dark castle. Hyungnim, shouldn't we be going back at the point? Why should we go back? We haven't even cleared the gate. Wraith replied to him as they continued their trekking, with Min-ho shaking and scanning all his surroundings for potential or unseen threats. They finally reached the castle's entrance. The doors were made of thick, black iron, with heavy bolts and chains securing them. The air around suddenly grew colder, not that Wraith felt, but he could tell by how Min-ho was shivering and with his pale skin. He could also hear the faint howling of the wind as it whips through the castle's battlements. H.H.Hyu.Hyungnim, A.Aren't.Y.Y.OU. Company cold. It must be because of my cold resistance passive skill. I can't feel it at all. Wraith pulled his black shirt, unleashing his fine-toned and thick-muscled body. His abs and chest were not like how they used to be back in the motel. There was already a distinct difference that even he didn't notice. That should help a bit. T.Thank.K.Ku.Hi.Hyungnim, while Min-ho struggled to talk with his shaking lips and grinding teeth. Wraith looked down with a shocked face. Or so now you decide to show up. A trial has been generated, you have reached a milestone on your path, being faced with a powerful foe ahead of you, the abyss has taken advantage of this opportunity to put you on a path of darkness. Will you accept this trial? Y/N, simultaneously, to their left, a purple-colored portal suddenly appeared. If you choose yes, you will leave the portal. Wow. The abyss has never given him an option before. Is the abyss trying to trick me, or maybe the decision I make here will decide a lot? Wraith looked forward and looked at the gate. The decision I make. He narrowed his gaze. Momo. H.H. makes sure no one touches my crystals. He said and threw the boy into the portal. Yes. You have made the right decision, a new trial has been generated, trial of essence. Discover your true name. Defeat the named ogre. Meanwhile, as they waited for Lee Se-Chul's attack sword, the gate suddenly began a misbehavior. The wind around it rose even higher and became more violent, then suddenly a person flew out of it, landing on his face with his butt in the air. Ha! While everyone was running helter-skelter preparing to counter the potential threats the gate could be, Agent Zhang Su's mouth gaped as he saw who came out of the gate. Immediately Min Ho was thrown out of the gate, the wind torrents disappeared and the gate switched color from purple to black. What the hell? Lee Se-Chul gazed at the gate with a bewildered expression. No one had ever heard of or seen a black gate before, it has never even existed before now. Requiem. Guild Master. The feminine voice came running as the black sedan car that carried the main attack squad parked roughly at a corner with the family brisky guy Lee Sung.Gi as the driver. He was panting. The pink-haired petite lady ran to Lee Se-Chul, whose eyes stayed glued to the gate. As the other squad members came down from the car with sophisticated and exquisite modern medieval armor, they also couldn't resist the enchanting ferocity of the black gate. Get prepared. Everyone. We are going into the gate. As Lee Se-Chul shouted and intended to step forward, the gate disappeared. In a flash, as if it was never there, it was gone. Back inside the gate, as Wraith stepped inside, he was enveloped in total darkness, with no torches or candles to light his way, but that wasn't an issue, thanks to passive skill, dark vision. The only thing he could hear was the echoing of his footsteps on the stone floor. The musty and thick air in conjunction with the earthy smell, was as if the castle has been abandoned for years. Gently, with soft step and calm breathing as if he was the owner of the castle, Wraith made his way down the long, winding corridor, with debris scattered across the floor. Eventually, he arrived at a large, ornate double door, its surface covered in intricate carvings of beasts and warriors locked in battle. He paused in front of the door. So it's here. He looked at the door. Black armor, his body was immediately shrouded in darkness, exposing only his eyes. With no shirt on, the black armor hugged his body, perfectly bringing out the contours and carvings of every muscle on his body. He pushed the doors open gently and stepped into the throne room. At first, there was nothing but a vast emptiness, the space was filled with an overwhelming sense of void. But as his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he made out a tall throne seat at the far end of the room, with the ogre seating on the throne and resting his head on one hand, waiting for Wraith. Chapter 63 Trial of Essence 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Impressive, I have been expecting you, human. Not that you understand me. You killed the orcs, huh? Wraith replied with the same language the ogre spoke to him, leaving the ogre in shock. He looked around and couldn't find any evidence of the orc's presence. How? A human can speak abysmal. His shocked expression soon wears off and changed to a smile. Well, that makes things easier, he grins as he steps off the throne, walking closer to Wraith. What did you do to the orcs? Wraith insisted on his question. I needed their vigor to add to my strength. So I sucked their life force, all that remains of the is sand. Just as the ogre mentioned, Wraith noticed the sand he was standing on. I can't believe you, they came here to be saved by you. The ogre tilted his head. Is this human hurt in the head? You were the one that wanted to kill them. You were the one they were running for. why do you care what I do with them? Because they were my precious fight buddies. They even killed me once. Wraith commented, feigning a sob and cleaning his eyes. Do you take me for a joke? The ogre frowned immediately, finding Wraith's composure and demeanor irritating. Does it matter? Wraith suddenly switched expressions, from sad to angry. It doesn't matter whether I take you for a joke. I will kill you here. I am Raven of Death. What is your name? I'd be a fool to give away my name so easily. Let me see what you are worth, then I can decide if you are worth hearing my name. The ogre said, spreading his white shark teeth. Hunter Min-ho, are you okay? Can you hear us now? Min-ho finally woke up after a few minutes. Hunter Min-ho, what about Raven? Hyungnim. Aoxwu. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at Ongant Jong.su. The gate was a double gate. He shouted as he came to his complete senses. We already know that much. Lee Se-chul muttered with folded arms. All of them stood around Min-ho. Yes, what monsters were in the dungeon? Where is Merchant Raven? Hey. Later make sure you do your research on Merchant Raven, investigate this guy, tail the associations if you have to. Lee Se-chul muttered to Lee Sung.Gei who was behind him. Yes, Guild Master, he replied sternly with a serious face. Hyungnim, he threw me out of the gate. He is going to clear the Dark Castle. The Dark Castle? Agent Jong.su asked, with one of his eyebrows raised. Yes. Hyungnim, when he was fighting the orcs, they ran away. After he defeated the orc chief, we traced them to where they ran to, which was a dark castle. Hyungnim suspected that there was another kind of monster there that was more powerful than the orc chief, which is probably why the orcs ran there. Min-ho explained as he fully came alive. But Lee Se-chul scoffed. Why is this guy lying? Why will monsters run away from someone? Even the special ranks that can single-handedly clear a rank's dungeon don't say the monsters run away from them. But it's true, they ran away. Stop lying bro, monsters can only see stronger humans as a threat and run away from them. No matter how strong humans are, they don't run away, they always fight, even when they are overpowered. That's enough. Hunter Lee Se-chul. Agent Jong.su stood to his face with slitted eyes and a cold glare and lowered brows. Or what? You are going to fight me? You, an A rank? Despite Lee Se-chul returning the hostile glare, Agent Jong.su didn't flinch and his gaze stayed glued to Lee Se-chul. Appa. That's enough, stop being a menace. And you too, association guy, know your place. Appa is an S rank and he will beat you should you two get to it. Damn guilds. Agent Jong.su relaxed his shoulders and turned to what mattered. I should help you to a hospital. He said to Min-ho, but Min-ho refused. We must wait for Hyungnim. He said nothing must happen to his crystals. That is fine, we can take care. No. Hyungnim saved me by throwing me into the gate as it was closing so quickly. I can't betray his trust in me. Wait, what are you saying? I thought you voluntarily replied while Hunter, Merchant Raven stayed to clear the gate. Agent Jong.su threw the guild leader of Gojo Guild a glance to note if he didn't catch him almost revealing the identity of their merchant, but Lee Se-chul was already walking away. No, the gate disappeared. But it reappeared when we got to the Dark Castle. It was a different place and the gate was going, but Hyungnim quickly threw me inside. How the hell did Momo come up with that narrative? He doesn't look like someone that will save someone else at the expense of himself though. Don't say that about my Hyung. Min-ho replied with a frown. I'm sorry. Agent Jong.su turned back to where the gate was just a few minutes ago. If it's a dark castle, it could be a very powerful monster. I hope you make it out alive. Hunter Wraith. He closed his eyes as he prayed for Wraith's safety. Wraith dashed at the ogre with his sword ahead of him, however as he got closer, the Orge suddenly smiled, causing Wraith to stumble back out of pure suspicion since he didn't catch on anything from transcendent sense. Grizzzt from all of Wraith's sides, a bolt of lightning emerging from nothing, rained on him, causing a massive explosion. He. The ogre laughed that too faded immediately as he saw that Wraith was still standing. Thank God, I had the body armor on. You have exhausted your cosmic energy. Skill black armor has been deactivated. You cannot use any skill until your cosmic energy replenishes. Your cosmic energy replenishes 1 cosmic energy / 1 minute. Wait, what? Like how many minutes is that? Like. Wraith paused for a moment to calculate. 17 hours. He cried out in agony. The ogre frowned and swung his wrist. Grizzzt, the bolts of lightning poured on Wraith again from several directions, electrocution him longer than before, till he was blackened all over and couldn't move a finger. I have to keep dying for 17 hours. Even while he was being struck so badly, what concerned him was the horror to come. He didn't fear it, but 17 hours. Was it even that long with Thard, Harl? Well, there was no way to know since he couldn't tell the time and he lost count of his death. Is this going to continue to be a problem going forward? Every time I exhaust my cosmic energy I won't be able to use my skills until it is fully replenished. He had no doubt gotten ahead of himself with his surplus amount of cosmic energy and fought endlessly with the Orc tribes and the Orc chief without expecting this backlash. Now he was about to pay the price for it. The skill, Way of the Sword, is by no doubt a very good sword skill, but it was expensive to use, consuming 10 cosmic points every minute. What is this? I expected more from you. You can't even resist mere lightning. How did you even beat that darn orc? At least wait for some minutes into the fight before you begin to blabber. Wraith stood up staggering and spun the sword, looking straight at the ogre. I can't keep dying just because I can. I can't wait for the cosmic energy to be filled before I start fighting. It's too much suffering. After all, I didn't have the cosmic energy when I fought Thard, Harl, and I defeated him. He motivated himself as if Thard, Harl's death wasn't pure luck. His brows lowered as he focused his gaze on the ogre in front of him, just like a human except for its white skin and thin horn. I'm doing this. Instant move. This time it was different from before due to Way of the Sword. Wraith could tell exactly where he was going for and what exactly it was that he needed to do, but now that he couldn't even use the skill, he ran forward into a blur without having a specific plan in mind. When the ogre delved a punch into Wraith's belly and Wraith didn't even see him coming so fast. His eyes widened as he was catapulted away by the impact of the punch, slamming into the wall of the throne room just beside the door. It might have been a straight death ticket if he was slammed into the door. His body dropped to the floor, leaving a webbed crack on the wall. The ogre twisted his wrist as he moved closer to Wraith. You have a formidable body. My wrist dislocated while trying to make the punch dive deep. Did it hurt? The ogre asked Wraith, who in response coughed endlessly, spitting and pouring blood from his mouth. Ah, shit. It's harder than I thought. Chapter 64 Class Change 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wraith charged forward, his sword aimed at the ogre's chest, but as the monster swung his hand again, Wraith was met by an invisible barrier that sent him flying backward. Immediately the ogre released a barrage of magical bolts that pummeled Wraith's body, leaving holes in several areas. Blood poured down his mouth and other areas of his body effortlessly as his knee sank to the ground. You have died. Level up. How long has it been now? Wraith had no idea. It was as if he had lost count. It was very hard to cover the distance that was between him and the ogre. With those annoying magical attacks, also the invisible barrier that is around made it impossible to reach the ogre. Magic. Wraith has heard about it, no doubt, since it is a type of attack pattern in their world that is meant for those that are not adept with the sword or are not fond of it at all. But he never really thought much about it because he believed that all they do is hide behind distance and do some incantations. Don't get me wrong. He still thinks so, that is the reason why he found this orc to be extremely irritating. Due to tidal effect you will be revived, how is this even possible? How are you not dying? This was the only part he enjoyed. That nasty and trembling look on the ogre's face each time he rose from the dead, it was almost giving him orgasm. I can keep dying just to see this bastard dread every time I woke up. Wraith pulled himself up again, staring at the ogre in the face. It doesn't matter how much you stand up again. You can't fight me, it is useless, the ogre stated and launched a series of blue fireball attacks that clobbered Wraith before he had the time to move. He was all burnt up on his face but he moved forward regardless, desperate to close the distance between him and the mage. He swung his sword and arc from below, forcing his memories to replay how efficiently and effortlessly he wielded the sword when he was using the sword skill. Even with that much struggle, he could only remake a fraction of it. The ogre stepped the sword down with one leg and with the other leg swung a kick on Wraith's cheek, sending him tumbling away. Even as his body came to a stop, the ogre appeared before him and stabbed his feet into him, plunging deep into his ribs and not caring if he broke something along the way. Wraith let out a cry as blood splattered everywhere on his shirtless body. He clenched his hands so tight that blood streamed down his palm, and his teeth were gritted and grinding against each other. The pain was excruciating and was on another level. He had not met an opponent this ruthless. Die for me. Die for me. The ogre shouted with a dismayed expression and he continued to stand his feet into Wraith's body until he heard no response. Have you finally died? He looked down at Wraith's helpless body and stepped back a little. Before he could take his next breath, the wound that was immersed in blood began to heal, although still leaving the lost blood and splattered blood around. It was fully closed and anyone would have thought it was never there if not for the pool of blood that Wraith was in. No matter how much you kill me. Wraith mumbled as he got ho slowly wham. But before he could say any more the ogre swarmed a kick unto him, throwing him away towards the throne. The ogre appeared next to him, lifted him by his head, and began to batter him with punches on his face. Is this the best you can do? Did you defeat the orc chief like this? How disappointing. Pow 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 pow. The sound of his punches reverberated through the entire throne room and the night as a whole. Wham! He dredged one final punch into Wraith's belly. That one smashed him into the height of the throne seat and as he fell, he died on the seat with his head dropping and his blood streaming down the entire seat. The ogre looked towards the throne and gave an irritated glare. That place is not meant for you. He appeared in front of Wraith and grabbed his hair. He was about to start pulling him down but the dead man's hand grabbed his wrist. The ogre paused for a moment, looking at Wraith who held his hand, and his head was still dropped like he was dead. How persistent of you. The ogre spread his hand open creating an ice lance in the air and drove it into Wraith's chest pinning him to the seat. I ruined my throne seat. Damn, it was never mine, to begin with. I can make a better when I remake this realm. He mumbled as he walked away from Wraith whose body had lost all strength. Baal, Hadad, RKBRPT. Words that even he had no idea where they came from. You have recalled a fraction of your true name, the abyss has found your origin, things are getting interesting. The entire space before Wraith suddenly went blank and everything turned to a world of burning shadows. I must admit this is unforeseen, Wraith found himself standing amidst the burning shadows. It was talking to him, the voice that was like a trembling floor was ringing from the flames of shadows. Who are you? A question you already have an answer to, the abyss. The abyss. Wraith was sure of it. I have questions for you. Why me? Why did you choose me? Why have you decided to make me an object of your suffering? I want to fucking kill you right now, so show yourself. The strongest of men are forged by the deadliest of paths. I do not exist to give power on a platter of gold. Power in the hands of an incompetent only brings ruin and destruction. If you will host me, then you must be worthy, and make no mistake, I didn't choose you, but now, that I know who you are. This might just get more interesting, wham. Wraith returned to the reality he was in and slowly opened his eyes as he was revived once more. A sub-trial has been generated, class change trial. The Abyss has found you worthy. Having confirmed your origin, the Abyss has offered you a class change trial. Kill the ogre. All skills will be locked. Title effect: One who devours death, will be locked. I.E. If you die for real. Your merit for class change will be calculated based on how much you suffered. You have 00.04.59.58 to defeat the monster. If you fail, this will be the end of your path. Chapter 65 Class Change 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Heek. I'm so dead. What is all this? Wraith gritted his teeth, and while he still pretended that he was dead for real, he had to take all the time he could manage to fully prepare for this. He had no idea why the Abyss suddenly switched up on him and found him worthy. Those words he said, he didn't even know what they meant. All he knew was that they were words that came to his tongue as he was on the thin line between life and death. Even now he couldn't remember them again. But the Abyss changed everything based on that alone, offering him a class change because his origin was found. And what did it mean by "I didn't choose you"? Then who the fuck chose me? Fell. A lot was still unclear, but at least one thing was. I can't die here. The last time his ultimate ability to rise after dying was taken away, it wasn't a pleasant experience. It was a trial to build courage in him, but he'd be gullible to take this instance for the same. The pretext on which everything happened is so different. Definitely, a power change was about to play out. And the Abyss was going to straighten him up for that. All his skills were locked, but his stats were. My stats. Stats. Strength. 116. Speed. 96. Stamina. 65. Intelligence. 145. Endurance. 124. Will. 12 available stat points. 52. In the last few hours of our fight, I've leveled up 10 times. Crazy, I died a lot. 10 to endurance, 20 to speed, and 20 to stamina. Stats. Strength. 116. Speed. 116. Stamina. 85. Intelligence. 145. Endurance. 134. Will. 12 available stat points. 2. A perfect synergy between strength and speed has been created. Wraith slowly rose from the throne seat, immediately alerting the ogre, who was already at the door and about to head out. He paused and frowned. You just won't die, will you? He spread out both arms as he turned to Wraith, creating a lighting spear in both of his hands. Wraith, slowly like a monarch, marched down the steps of the throne seat, with a purple dot-colored smoke flowing out of his body as his body contour aligned to his stats adjustment. The ground cracked as he applied more force. His feet about to take launch himself forward. Thwack. The entire ground at his feet were upon scattered as he disappeared from the ogre's sight. The ogre in hurry looked left and right but couldn't find Wraith. As his gaze went up, it was too late. Wraith's fist came smashing down upon the head of the monster. But it was blocked by the invisible barrier that surrounded him. Wraith clicked his tongue in frustration and leaped backward. I know now, you are not human. You are like me, you were given a true name like me. The fuck, don't compare me to you. I am not a lowly monster. Wraith replied with a glare that undermined the existence of the ogre and made him very angry. Well then. You will die anyway. The ogre declared with a nasty grin as he released a barrage of lightning attacks. Wraith dodged and weaved, narrowly avoiding each strike. Now that his life was on the line, he was more careful than he had ever been. The tingles of the lightning as the streaked past him jumped his heart upon every dodge, and the shockwave that was emitted as some hit the ground tempted his legs to lose strength. But he refused. I've come this far. I can't die here. A frown invaded Wraith's face as the adrenaline of that moment overwhelmed his body. Wraith held the sword with a focus and renewed gaze, with no skill to guard his senses or predict his attack patterns or strengthen his defense. He continued his assault, his sword slicing through the air with deadly precision. But the ogre's invisible barrier was a thorn in his flesh, none of his attack was willing to go through. He continued to press forward, striking with all his might and not caring how unsightly and scattering he was throwing his sword. What mattered was that he was focused, and no matter how rough his footwork and sword swings were, nothing mattered more than it reaching the attack point. The two combatants began trading blows and parrying attacks. Wraith's sword rang against Ogre's barrier, sending sparks flying as if it was hitting a metal surface. On top of his already amazing magical abilities, the ogre was very strong in his blows as the struck Wraith made his strength seep away. Ah! Wraith relentlessly smashed his sword on the invisible barrier over and over again, in frustration. Wham! The ogre smashed a punch into him, sending him away, but Wraith stood his ground and dug his feet into the ground, gaining control of himself and stopping only 2 meters away. Perhaps it was an effect of the synergy, but he didn't care. He lunged himself forward again, he swung his sword in from all angles all at once, and from the ogre's vantage point all that multiple sword attacks converged to look like just one, but it was something that was made possible due to Wraith's incredible speed. Wham 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 wham, he clobbered the ogre's barrier with the barrage of arcs, grist. As the last attack landed on the barrier, the black sword expelled a bolt of lightning that shattered the barrier. Wraith, who was already losing his sense of self in frustration as he couldn't land one single blow on the ogre, grinned. At this point, it was too late to recover that sense of self. What went through his mind as that barrier finally broke was not a sense of relief, instead, it was a burst of adrenaline as he was beginning to enjoy this, and a wide smile spread across his face. He didn't know how the sword patterns were supposed to go, but he knew very well how to land a sword on a target. He rushed in, oblivious of the ogre's magical abilities, and began to batter the ogre with strikes from all angles, periodically changing his angle to land a surprise attack on the ogre, but all that attack was being parried by the ogre and with bare hand. Is his hand steel or what? Wraith for a moment did not flinch, he tightened the space between them, pressing further to make sure the ogre does not have any space between them. He swung and swung till his eyes couldn't follow the speed of his hand. It was like he had begun to move with pure reflexes. But the ogre wasn't in front of him anymore. Chapter 66 Class Change 3, you are listening at novelfull.audio. His mistake was taking his eyes off the ogre for a moment. Wham! The strike came from the side and it smashed him into the wall of the throne room. His arms were seriously grazed by the wall and blood streamed down. He held the sword regardless and stood back up. How odd, is it because I might die? I seem to be trying hard. Wraith held the sword tightly with his bloody hand, the blood that streamed down his hand sank into the black ring he was given by Volmac, and the rest ran down the sword. Due to tidal effect, I am suicidal, all your stats will rise by 50%, Wraith felt a new surge of strength as he saw the message. He could also feel his vigor, which was already drifting away. He stood up holding his sword tight as the ogre looked at him with irritation. Why do I keep spending my precious time on a maggot like you? Hear me, well human, I will tell you my name, etch it into your soul as you go to the underworld. I am Nobilis Uviria. He shouted, proudly flinging his hands in the air to proclaim his sovereignty over that brief moment. But all that stopped the moment Wraith's sword entered his chest and came out from his back. He paused with shaking eyes and looked down. How? He muttered as blood splattered from his mouth. Wraith had intended to catch him off guard, which worked, even more, better than Wraith had anticipated due to the 50% increase in his speed. Wraith grinned. Gotcha. The ogre looked down with a glare and grabbed Wraith's face, tightening his hand around his face, intending to shatter his head with just his grip, and it was working. Wraith let out a scream as he began to struggle with his head within the monster's grip, but with all that pain and suffering, he drove the sword in deeper, turning it as the force of the ogre's hand intensified on his head. Item has received a sufficient amount of blood, ego of the item has awakened, you have equipped item, helmet of the shadow god. From the ring came out a sharp twirl that rolled around Wraith's head, covering all his face and forming a black flame helmet with a pointed top and a T-shaped visor. On the pointed top is a dark smoke wriggling like a clothing of darkness. Due to the helmet of the shadow god, your health has been replenished. Due to the helmet of the shadow god, you have received plus 30 strength stat. All the wounds on Wraith's body began to slowly heal while the ogre's hand had been chopped away the moment the helmet came on. The ogre looked at Wraith with a horrified expression. How? His mouth shook as Wraith pulled out the sword. He fell to his knee and gazed down in unbelief, holding his open belly but still couldn't stop the bleeding. Is that your last word? Wraith said as he raised his sword with the tip of its blade pointing to the ogre's head. Please spare me. I'll serve you. The ogre cried as he desperately tried to hold his stomach and stop the bleeding. Wraith paused for a moment and looked at the monster's feigned sorry face. That is not the face of someone who wants to be spared. He slowly plunged the sword into the monster's raised face and watched with gladness as he pushed his sword down the monster's throat, causing a fountain of blood to emerge. Besides, I don't take betrayers for a subordinate. He concluded. He pulled out the blade suddenly as he remembered. I need his core. I won't let you absorb him. The blade wriggled subtly in response. The shadow helmet disappeared and formed a ring on his hand as he approached the corpse of the monster. He put his hand into his open belly and brought out the crystal core of the monster. No color. He was shocked to behold the colorless crystal which gave it a transparent nature. Well, whatever, do you want to absorb high grade crystal? Y/N, absorbing crystal, you have received plus 350 shadow energy not cosmic energy. The darkness in you has risen, you have completed trial of essence, you have completed the class change trial, you can now change your class, you have unlocked the attribute Shadow Lord, you can now use your shadow energy. Wraith looked at the black smoke with hints of purple color swimming around his hand. Choose a new class, Berserker Dark Knight Necromancer HM. If I'm to choose based on my fight style so far, I think I'll just go for a Berserker since I know I will always rise when I die, but Dark Knight sounds cool, it's tempting. I'll probably be some cool knight shrouded in black armor. Necromancer, however, nah. That's not me. I will not choose a class where I have to be fighting with weak-ass skeletons. He grinned as he scrolled his eyes back to the top. I should settle for this. You have made your decision, 2 other classes have been deleted. Ah wait, I still wanted to. Wraith heaved a sigh. At least it's a good thing it is Berserker. You have chosen class Necromancer, hey. Wraith let out a frustrated shout. Who the fuck chose Necromancer? I didn't choose Necromancer. You chose Necromancer the moment you refused it. Oh great, so now I choose stuff by not choosing them. Great, just great. Wraith was angry, but what could he do? The Abyss had federated pleasure in making it hard for him. He was the one that was fooled to forget that for a moment. Calculating your suffering points, you died 13 times while fighting the ogre. 1 death equals 1000 suffering points. You had an outstanding death on the throne seat, 3000 suffering points gained. Your head was almost crushed with bare hands, 1500 suffering points gained. You were killed by a mere leg stabbing into your ribs. Ah. You call that mere leg? Why don't you try dying that way? 4500 suffering points added. You enjoyed your moment of death. You have gained plus 500 bonus suffering points. It wasn't like enjoy it, but I must admit, it was kinda cool when he killed me on the throne the second time. Wraith muttered, shyly scratching his cheek. You have accepted your path and do not fear death. You have gained plus 100 bonus suffering points. You are weak without your skills. You have gained plus 400 bonus suffering points. Calculating suffering points. Your suffering points have surpassed the required suffering points for the class you chose. You have unlocked a hidden class. Will you accept the hidden class, Monarch of Darkness? Chapter 67 Class Change, 4. Monarch of Darkness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Will you accept the new hidden class, Monarch of Darkness? Wraith was silent for the next few moments. It probably will force it on me anyways. So yes. You have changed your class. Child of Death has been switched to a sub-class. Your main class is Monarch of Darkness. You have unlocked class. Specific skills, Skill Bestowal, EX, LV1 Ego Save, SSS, LV1 Shadow Creation, EX, LV1 Soul Extraction, EX, LV1 Summon Soldiers, SSS, LV1 Domain of Darkness, EX, LV1 Wraith smirked at the skill information. Skill Bestowal, EX, LV1, you can bestow a skill from your skill list to a certain target for 1 minute, time increases as the level of skill increases. This skill costs 70 cosmic energy per use or 10 shadow energy. Ego Save, SSS, LV1, this is a skill you possess before becoming the Monarch of Darkness. However, due to the new class effect, this skill has been modified. You can save the ego of a particular target, hence saving its traits and skills. This skill does not cost any energy, however, can only be used through the passive skill, Devourer. Shadow Creation, EX, LV1, you can create a desired body for a safe ego using the properties of darkness itself. Skill costs 100 shadow energy per use. You can only use the skill once in one level. The skill cost will reduce with higher skill levels. You will be able to add more features to the shadow body when the skill reaches higher levels. Skill leveling is randomly determined. Soul Extraction, SSS, LV1, you can call upon the darkness of a soul to be your soldier. It will take on a new body which is the property of darkness. Shadow. Skill costs 1 shadow energy per use. You can extract 50 souls, 0/50, you will be able to extract stronger souls as the skill level increases. Summon Soldiers, SSS, LV. 1. You can summon extracted soldiers to fight for and with you. Summoned dark soldiers cannot die as long as they have shadow energy. Even if they are defeated, they will be regenerated. Skill costs 1 shadow energy per minute for 1 soldier. At higher levels, skill costs will reduce. Domain of Darkness, EX, LV1, you can summon a realm of darkness that will overlap a chosen area for 3.5 minutes. In that realm of darkness, all laws will be subjected to your will. Skill costs 500 shadow energy per use. Skill duration will increase as skill level increases. Wow. Okay, it is more impressive than I thought. Wraith wore a smug face and nodded. I should try it out though. He rubbed his chin with his index finger. How do I do this? I should first create a body. Shadow Creation. Create a shadow using your imagination. As instructed. Wraith closed his eyes, picturing the Fenrir. Upon opening his eyes, it appeared on the holographic tab, just as he imagined it. You can make modifications. Okay, let's make the skin white instead of black. That feature is not possible, due to being created by the property of darkness. Shadow, all creations will have a black body and aura, TCH, nothing ever goes my way. He complained a little but focused his attention into what he was doing. Okay, let's make its eyes a little bit more narrow and fiercer, let's make it a purple aura burning from its eyes so it can match me. Just as Wraith instructed, the modifications were done. That should be good. He checked the drawing representation on the holographic tab for the last time. Okay, that's good. You have completed shadow creation. Choose an extraction keyword, choose a summoning keyword. This is a big task. Wraith folded his arms and drove deeper into his thoughts for a few minutes. As if he revealed a heavenly revelation, he shot his eyes wide open and okay, let's choose, awake my child for extraction and come forth for summoning, awaken registered, come forth registered, select the ego you want to merge with the created shadow summon, Fenrir ego unknown human ego goblin king ego, regardless of the ego you choose, they will have 100% unwavering loyalty to you, Fenrir. You have chosen Fenrir ego, do you want to merge Fenrir ego with created shadow? Body, yes. Merging. Fenrir ego is a high-level ego, hence Shadow Soldier will start from a higher level than a normal summon. Black smoke began to emerge from the ground and filled the entire room on lower levels. In front of Wraith, there was a sudden surge of black smoke that busted the roof of the castle, forming the figure of a giant wolf with purple eyes. At first the figure was irregular, but in few seconds the body became smooth, surrounded with black smoke aura with hints of purple. The shadow monster bowed in front of Wraith, lowering all its limbs and legs. Goosebumps ran through Wraith's spine as he saw this. He smiled. Due to the high level of monster, you can name it. Wolf, do you want to name the shadow summon Wolf? Wait, let's think about this well, maybe I should just go with Fenrir. Wraith exercised a little bit of patience to calm his excited state and think of a proper name, else he makes a mistake he regrets every time he calls the shadow monster by its name. Do you want to name the shadow summon Fenrir? Yes. A bright red light glowed above the black wolf, displaying the name Fenrir in red. Fenrir, level 01 type. Beast rank. A skill. Thunder Roar, S, Fiery Charge, A. Amazing. Wraith was fully okay with what he had seen so far. At this point, not even the world can stop him. But he still had 49 more slots to fill. This is why, he turned to the body of the ogre that lay on the ground, lifeless and in a pool of blood. He moved closer to the monster and remembered their fierce fight. He grinned as he thought about how powerful the ogre will be when he gets summoned. You can use soul extraction on target. Black smoke swam around the body as the message appeared. Rayoth smiled with relief. Awaken. The smoke around surged as if it was heeding his command but soon calmed. Soul extraction has failed, you have 2 trials remaining. Wraith gritted his teeth. Of course, it won't be easy. He's a named monster. Even when he was alive, he has very cocky. But it is different now, I'm its master. Then I should probably act like one. Wraith lowered his brow and looked down at the monster. When you were alive, you were arrogant and thought nothing can stop you, didn't you? I know you are still arrogant even in your death, but regardless I offer you a chance to serve me. To redeem yourself. So awaken. Chapter 68. I am now a different person. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's been 5 hours already. Agent Jong.su looked at his wristwatch and looked at the space where the gate was supposed to be. He looked back at Min-ho, who was seated under the tent, waiting for Wraith to come out. Hunter Min-ho, I think you should. No, I can't leave until Hyungnim comes. Dioviko, he replied brazenly, with a focused gaze toward where the gate should be. Agent Jong.su sighed and sat down. Moments later, Lee Se-chul, who had left earlier, his attack squads were still around and were chilling in their black sedan bus. As he got out of his car to approach Agent Jong.su, the air began to swirl, and the gate from a small point in that swirl began to grow bigger, starting with a black color that slowly reverted to a blue color. Wraith dauntlessly walked out of the gate, with his trousers ripped, his shirt gone but his magnificent body in full display to the entire surrounding, the perfect alignment of his muscles, his chiseled chest, broad shoulders, thickened neck, and an overall slight increase in height. His gaze had also changed as if he was staring cold death into everyone that looked at him. Hyungnim. Merchant Raven. Wraith looked at the little crowd that gathered around. What happened? Why are there so many people? Wraith asked as Agent Jong.su reached him with a blanket. It is good to have you back, Merchant Raven, he said, covering Wraith's body with the blanket, but having to overstretch himself a bit for that to be possible. Was he always this tall? The agent wondered briefly as Wraith entered the tent and bowed his head for a moment, not responding to the chaos of questions Min-ho kept showering on him. Shut up! His voice struck fear into the heart of everyone that was around, and the atmosphere suddenly became tense such that everyone was silent for the next few moments. Wraith gritted his teeth as he recalled the embarrassment in the gaze. Even after that long speech that made him feel like a god. The bastard ogre did not respond to his call. Why? Was it because it is a named monster? Is it more powerful than Fenrir? I got Fenrir as an ego, maybe if I had tried to extract its soul that time it might not have been possible. Wraith looked at the tab in front of him. Number of shadow summons. 50/50ths, at least it worked out with the orc chief and the other orcs I killed. He sighed and freed himself from the anger and frustration that had formed a tension all around him. Everywhere suddenly became cool. Hunter Wraith, please, we would like you to hide your identity from those people. Agent Zhang Daesu leaned toward Wraith and whispered to him, causing Wraith's vision to switch to the coming Li Se, Chul and his guild's main attack squad. Are you the hunter that cleared the gate? Li Se, Chul asked, forcing himself not to cower before the domineering presence that Wraith emanated. Hunter Li Se, Chul. You have no business here. As Agent Zhang Daesu spoke, two other agents blocked his path. Li Se, Chul looked at the two of them and looked at Agent Zhang Daesu. You never learn, do you? He said, emitting a blue aura from his glowing eyes and tightening his fist. What are you doing? Wraith's shadow energy countered his immediately, trapping the atmosphere within the penitentiary of fear. Li Se.Chul's hand began to shake as he looked into Wraith's slitted eyes, which were subtly exuding purple and black smoke as a faint show of his cosmic energy and shadow energy. He turned back instantly and walked away, gritting his teeth. Agent Zhang Daesu looked back at Wraith with widened eyes. He made the arrogant Li Se.Chul turn back with just a release of his energy. No doubt about it. This guy is S rank. Agent Zhang Daesu stiffened his expression and bowed. Thank you for clearing the gate. As agreed, the association will credit you with your quota. He belted with a 90 bow, ignoring the desire for his questions to be answered. It's good. Min Ho. Wraith looked to his side, which was suddenly silent. Hyungnim. Let's go home. Yes, Hyungnim. Min Ho replied, happier than he was when he graduated the medical school. Guild Master. What happened? Behind Li Se.Chul was a big guy clad in silver armor and was looking at the white Mercedes that drove away. I don't know who that guy is. But I think we have to bring him to our guild. Bring him to our guild. Why? If that guy is a special rank. And he is with the association, we guilds are fucked. He said to the face of the tall guy and turned to Li Sung.Gei, who silently standing beside him. Manager Li. Yes, Guild Master. I'll put you in charge of recruiting that guy. And I want you to spread rumors that the associations have a special rank as a merchant. I can understand the recruiting, but why should we spread a rumor? The timid manager asked with a cautious tone. Isn't it obvious? If we can't get him, then the associations can't have him too. If rumors go around and reach Park Shur, 1. I'm sure that guy will begin to pull all his strings to recruit him. All is fine as long as the association doesn't have him. I see. The guild master's selfish side. Li Se.Chul looked at the association as they packed up their equipments and left the scene slowly. Fourth realm of hell. How annoying. I haven't even begun to use him and he has died. Deep and dark red skin glistened in the dim light from the red moon. Piercing yellow eyes glinted with a predatory gaze as he spoke, looking at his hands. At his feet was a lady that was shrouded in transparent linen that was clearly displaying her womanly features. Your Highness, you. And use me as much as you like. She said with her tongue stuck out and with a nasty face that told the story of where they've been coming from. Certainly, this was not the first time she was being used as much as he likes. Even though she had a bright skin complexion like every other human, her scara was black with a red eyeball. It was none other than the particular that set apart a succubus. He was quite strong though. I wonder what human killed him. She frowned as the demon spoke of humans. Your Highness, are you toying with the humans again? She inquired sensitively. Baal used to love them so much. It gives me so much joy to destroy them slowly. I should look for another monster. He mumbled before standing up and leaving the succubus at the feet of his seat. Chapter 69 Fear the Goddamn Ants. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Everyone in the rut has been waiting for this day. The day that the Elemental Guild will finally clear the level 10 dungeon that plagued them. Thaw Sonata has received so many thanks, and he had even become the most searched word on the internet. When you search Thaw Sonata or Rigeria City, the first thing that comes out is about the level 10 gate. The entire island was already taken by the monsters. And the government had even employed high-rank heroes of the Throne Archon who were vast in barrier creation. This was how the country had been able to survive and contain these monsters in one area. Thaw Sonata stood in front of the seaport that led to Epsilon City. What are you thinking about? Virgo approached him, donned in sleek armor sitting atop his black turtleneck. He adjusted his hands' gloves as he stood next to Thaw. Thaw Sonata closed his eyes with a smirk. History is about to be written. With this Virgo, I will prove myself as the strongest in the entire world. Thaw Sonata stated, staring at the golden light of the barrier that shone from afar. Sir. The chopper is ready. A man in a black suit approaches Thaw. He turns back with his hands in his pocket and nods, looks at Virgo one last time, and walks away. The Elemental Guild consisted of heroes that were chosen by the Nature, or Elemental, Archon. Ranging from fire abilities to water manipulation, lightning, earth, and wind, although it may sound stereotypical, there are different applications to these abilities. For example, Thaw Sonata is a pyromancer who can even create his own fire. But there is another fire ability user whose ability is to ignite tremendous fire bombs that leave an explosion effect strong enough to bring down a 100-floor skyscraper in 1 minute. The main team consisted of Thaw Sonata, Shira Keith, a white-haired girl whom the world know today as Thaw's girlfriend. Leonard Respiro, an adept earth manipulator and the Troubles tanker of the team, and still able to effectively switch to the role of support when needed. Ismail Chaffs, Will Griffin, Virgo Blackman, and Ulardral Strongtower who is one of the few elves who have not hidden away from humanity on an island. The 7 of them entered the chopper, but that was not, of course, all they would need to raid a dungeon. The entire Elemental Guild, which consisted of 70.6 members along with 100 armed soldiers to support them, had gone earlier with the ship. This was definitely supposed to be a successful raid. In 30 minutes they entered the golden light boundary, which made it impossible for anyone to come out from inside until they were sure that the dungeon had been cleared. The entire island was overrun with ant monsters. And they were different from black ants, which were only capable of walking, red ones that could fly, purples ones who only could walk but made use of deadly poison that would kill anyone in seconds. The tall buildings and skyscrapers of Epsilon City, which used to be a center of attraction, had become ruins. An apocalypse was the best description for this city. Red sky, broken roads, fallen buildings, and ants swarming all over the debris. They had burrowed a habitat in every area of the city, and this was what the Elemental Guild was to fight. As the ship dropped them, they charged into the city, with the soldiers on a shooting spree, killing any ants they laid their eyes on. The ant monsters were different from your average Joe, with massive bodies and almost impenetrable scales. But the reinforced bullets that they were using made things so easy. With the soldiers at the forefront of the battle and the Elemental Guild supporting from behind, they pressed further, killing whatever sight of ants they saw, until they came in contact with the red ants that were capable of flying. They began to kidnap the soldiers one by one, and no amount of shooting could hit them. Their flight was so fast, and it was almost as if they could see the bullets coming. They would fly in different patterns to evade the bullets and chop off the head of the soldiers with their mandibles. This caused a quick change in the tide of the battle and put the Elemental Guild in the forefront. The soldiers' numbers had been reduced to half in just 20 minutes since the appearance of the red ant monsters, and the other soldiers were beginning to cower. At least the Elemental Guilds had a chivalrous nature. They stepped in and began a full-out battle. With abilities ranging from fire and lightning to water and wind, they used them all to devastating effect. Flames leaped from the hands of the fire users, lightning bolts struck down ant after ant. Ice users created walls of ice to hold back the swarm, while water users summoned waves to wash them away. Wind users created tornadoes to fling the ants into the air, while earth users used their powers to create barriers and traps, also smashing the ants to bits with massive boulders. The formation calmed the tide of the battle and things were progressing slowly and looking good. Although the red ants retreated immediately, this formation played out and could be seen holding back on top of buildings and watching as the purple ants and black ants were being dealt with. Just a few of them flew towards the heroes and faced the same fate. The majority watched. But even the walking ants were not to be underestimated. They were ferocious fighters, with powerful jaws and claws that could tear through steel. They used their impressive strength to counter the heroes. The purple ants began to spray purple, slimy liquid that melted the ice walls immediately. The battle raged on for hours, with the ants dying at an alarming rate, but soon as fatigue began to set in, things began to change slowly. It was then the red ants flew in and began to break their formations. The heroes, regardless of this change, fought with all their might, knowing that the fate of Epsilon City rested on their shoulders. But it was a drag. They were too tired and the red ants were posing more threats than they could handle, being able to fly anytime they want and launch surprise attacks with strong mandibles that snatched their heads off their necks in just one swing. Everything was slowly getting to an end, until the main attack team joined the battle. Thaw Sonata's fire was like a hell, soaring through the sky and burning the red ants massively. Their carcasses fell from the sky. Chapter 70. I said fear the goddamn ants. 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Why is it so noisy outside? It seems the humans have gathered on the island to take it back. What a waste of effort. The humanoid ant with a white exoskeleton and compound eyes and a pair of simple eyes below it was seated in the office of the branch manager of the Heroes Association, Epsilon Branch. In front of him knelt two other humanoid ants, one red and one blackish purple. They bowed their heads as they responded to him. If you will it. We shall put an end to the humans. It is all right. You two protect Mother. I want to see for myself how strong the humans are. The white ant, created using the body of Yao Jansi, was the supreme ruler of the entire ants colony and the strongest that there was. The other two were strong enough to defeat Yao Jansi during his old age, but this one was different. He stood up. Unlike the other two who had 4 hands, he had just 2, but they were long, reaching his knee. His wings flung out from his back as he placed one leg on the broken window and looked out into the red sky with flames surging intermittently. A wide smirk formed on his mandibles and he rocketed into the sky, destroying the entire window frame with the force impact of his take-off. Thaw Sonata was not the only one that changed the tides of the battle. The Cyromancer, Shira Keith. Her ability was monstrous. With just a touch she could turn the entire surrounding into a raging ice cone, that pierced into the ants, trapped them, and killed them in tens. What about the water-fire combo between Ismail Chaths and Will Griffin? The two adeptly used fire and water to make up for their weaknesses and plunged deeper into the ruined city. They were ahead of everyone and were carving a path to where the main dungeon gate was. Things are getting better. Ismail Chaths said, looking at Will with a smile. Yes, I can't see us losing this. The dark-skinned Will responded as burning down a poisonous ant before it could spit. He turned to Ismail and touched his jaw gently. But more than all that, what is good is fighting by the side of the one I love. He said as he kissed him. Humans. What a fragile creature. The thick voice resonated around the ruined environment, but they couldn't tell exactly what he was saying. To them it just sounded like another jargon that hurt their hearing. But neither of them could deny the difference of the ant that suddenly appeared before them. Their face turned pale as he stepped closer and their legs developed a mind of their own and made a run, but before they could go any far. The ant stopped Will by his shoulder. His mandibles squirmed as he looked down on the dark-skinned boy and, chomp, he ate off his head immediately. Ismail kept running with glances back, but his legs didn't stop. His eyes were reddened from fear and tears ran out of his eyes as he watched his headless boyfriend fall to the floor. Even though he had reached a considerably far distance, it was meaningless before the flight speed of the white ant. With transparent wings flapping so fast that they could not be seen, the monster floated in front of Ismail. Humans with weak legs, I will ask you a question. Hayek. Ismail shivered as he suddenly could hear the monster speak the same language as him. This is a level 10 monster, impossible, 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 impossible. I know you can hear me. After consuming the brain of your partner, I can understand your language. I will ask you a question. What can jump higher than a mountain? P. Plane. As expected, humans are dumb. He replied and placed one hand on the shaking Ismail's head, scorching him with fire that he didn't have before. Mountains can't jump. Fool, he flew away after Ismail was burnt to a crisp, scattering in the hot wind. It's been a while since those two went ahead. I'm sure they are doing nonsense while being away from everyone, so go after them. BDNV Thaw said to Ulardril and Leonard. The two in response dashed forwards, hopping over fallen buildings and destroying the ants that crept out of them or the ones that flew into their path. As Leonard propelled himself into the air, whish. In a jiffy, only a headless body was seen landing. Leonardo. Ulardril with her elven accent shouted his name such that everyone was alerted. The attention drifted over the fallen building where she stood and they all watched Leonard's headless body topple to the ground, all of them including Thaw Sonata. What is that? One of the guild members said, pointing his hand to the figure of the humanoid ant that held Leonard's head and stood at the very top of the highest building, with the red sky casting an eerie atmosphere upon the scene. Thaw. Virgo Blackman immediately touched Thaw Sonata, whose face was already brimming with anger. If that thing can kill Leonard in just 1 second, it won't be wise of us to launch in with emotions. We should prioritize the safety of the guild members and address this cool-headed fool. Thaw Sonata exhaled. Right from time, Virgo Blackman has always been that friend who knew how to put him under control and help him retrace his steps. They had always been the best of friends. Wham! Thaw's eyes widened. The monster that was supposed to be far away, on top of a building, was right beside him, with his hand plunging deep into Virgo's belly. I hate weak humans. It said, turning its eyes to Thaw Sonata as of telling him, you are next. As it pulled out its hand, Virgo fell to the ground with his blood splattering all over the white ant. Argarg. Thaw propelled himself away from the monster with an outburst of his hell flames that burnt the monster's exoskeleton, leaving it unsightly and his skin burnt. The monster looked at his body and his compound eyes narrowed to a slit. It seems I have underestimated this one. He mumbled as he picked up Virgo's lifeless body and began to munch on his head. After eating off the head, his body began to recover at an alarming rate, glowing green light as his skin reverted to its original beauty. No wonder the human was so weak. He had restorative abilities. The monster looked at Thaw Sonata, who was devastated at what he saw. How in the world? He stole Virgo's healing powers by eating his head off. The monster looked around and with that scream, a swarm of ants greater in number than before swarmed out of the gate, led by the two ants general, the red ant and the blackish-purple ants. The red sky was darkened immediately as flying black ants covered the entire sky. All of them looked up, and at that moment, we are fucked. Thaw Sonata's cocky countenance fell. Because of his greed and pride, he had led his entire guild members into the hands of death.